All right, so I have become totally addicted. Not really totally addicted, but kind of hooked on watching Klaus Freemore videos. What I did was I chopped up a bunch of his casts, and then I made a video of them, and then I watched it like a lot because he has such a unique style. I just love to watch him cast, and I try to incorporate that into my own. No, I don't. I just try to figure out how he does it. Because my Scandi, I'm really not a Scandi caster, and the honest truth is, you do not need to be an underhand guy to be able to cast these Scandi lines, and I think most people aren't, and that's perfectly fine. Underhand casting is, for me, it's been really, really hard to learn. It feels like prohibitive and constrictive because you're just going like this and casting, and I feel more comfortable if I'm stretching out a little bit, getting more length in my lift, my sweep, and casting like with a little, of course, underhand incorporated into it because everybody does who's a good caster, I think. But to just be a strict Scandi guy where you're casting like that, it's kind of a tall order. It's very difficult to do. I have spent hours and hours and hours trying to stop the rod with my body, and I am not good at it. And it's not really necessary. I have a lot better luck just by stopping it with my bottom hand, and you can stop it with your bottom hand against your body, and that can be helpful. But all casts, not all casts, but underhand casting or using your bottom hand anyway has really improved all casting. It looks to me like Skagit casting kind of came out of underhand casting, because if you watch Ed Ward, he has a really tight box that he stays in. If you just watch him up close, he keeps everything right in here. He doesn't talk about it much, but it looks kind of underhandy, and a waterborne cast with an underhand stroke can be really, really powerful. So if you can take some of the elements of underhand casting and apply them to a Skagit cast or a traditional spey cast, it can do nothing, in my mind's eye, it can do nothing but improve the cast. So that's that. The thing about underhand, though, is it's really specialized. You need for me, if I'm going to do it, I need a really, not a stiff rod, but a rod that doesn't bend a lot. And this is a Guideline Lacey, which I absolutely love. It's a 4-piece, 13'7", 8'9", and so to me, it's kind of more like a 7-weight, but I love this thing. This thing, you can put any line on it, and the heavier you line it, the stiffer it gets. So if you put I put a 500 grain Skagit short on it, and it'll cast it. It's just fine as a Skagit rod, but and when guys were fishing with it, they were fishing the 7/8, let's see, and loading it up like a modern American, with heavy Skagit lines, and it wasn't intended to be like that. It's intended for lighter lines. So if you load it up, it's heavy, it feels like a board, and it really performs. It's super fun. But I put a 360 grain airflow compact Scandi on here. Super long leader, about 20 feet, 18 or something. And this super light shooting head brought this rod to life. It's so weird because there's some rods out there, like the Sage Igniter, the 7-weight, which I had for a little while. That thing, I don't care how good a caster you are, if you don't load that thing up, it will not cast. You gotta put grains on that baby, and then it'll perform. But with this rod, you can underline it, and the more you underline it, the more life comes into it. You know, it gets a little more wobblier, which I like, because you can feel it. It's sensitive, and it almost feels, if this rod is designed to be tippy, then that's what brings it out. A 360 grain head on an 8/9 two-handed. So you need a rod that doesn't bend a lot. That's why, you know, maybe you could use a soulful, soft, parabolic rod and Scandi cast, but if you did, it would have to be one that still didn't bend a lot, because it's a super short stroke. So I got maybe a 31-foot head on this, super long leader, and the stroke is, you know, it's that. Okay, it's bottom hand, stir the pot, super light anchor, like that. And then I've done this enough that I can stop it down here. You stop it on the same side that you cast from. Ideally, you don't cast it across your body, although that works great, and I probably would default into that. You know, if I was just cast, some of my best loops come, you know, when I cast like that. But if you're going to be a strict underhand genarian, you're going to be a strict underhand jetarian, that's it right there. And now I can do it. Now I can demonstrate it. And now when I'm bored on the water, that's what I can use. So, you need a tight rod, super short, tight. You need a non-bendy rod. This one is more tippy with this light line on here, but the slight line brings the wobble out. I got a short shooting head, probably 31 feet. And a super short casting stroke. And oh, that is something. So here's some things that have helped me understand the Scandi cast, or the underhand, is, you know, you want your hand to stay in front of your shoulder. I have done better when I've relaxed my elbow and let it come back a little bit. But if you keep your elbow here and you put your hand here, you're really stretched out. So So if I let my elbow come back, keep my hand here, see, then I can whack myself right in the balls and do a real standy cast. What has helped me though, you know, at first you should stir the pot really slow. Cast like that. But I'm getting better, tighter loops if I put a little. Klaus Premor talks about hiding line speed in a snake roll or one of those casts where you spiral spay or snake roll. But after studying his style, I'm starting to notice that he hides a little bit of line speed in his sweep and circle up. He kind of does them together. So if I lift and then I do a circle up into the key position, lift, sweep, circle up, plant that anchor, I get a really tight D loop, which I like for these short heads. And bombs the way she really goes. But what I found, what I found is if I sweep, try to do it, if you try to do it fast and at an inclined rod tip path with this short head, you'll blow your anchor. So you might have to wait a little bit. But if I just sweep into a circle up, plant that anchor, and I might even have to wait for that. So left, that way I can do all the parts, you know. The more energy I get in my D loop, the shorter stroke I can have. That was kind of stupid. Does that make sense? So if I kind of give her the gas in the circle up, you know, I can sweep pretty flat. That was an underhanded loop, upside down. So there, then I can cast like that. If I float it in, I can cast, and it's fine. You can float it in. Sometimes I can there. So whatever you want, a light anchor. The other thing you have to have is you got to be able to cast. Start it here and end here. If it's too tight, you know, you're going to get such a narrow loop, or it's going to be upside down, or it's going to collapse or run into each other. So the more wide I can get it, the less chance is, the wider I can get it, so the wider my casting angle is, 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, from 10 to 2, the more apt the loop is to stay open and produce a really nice loop without being too tight. Because if you're trying to cast like this, that short angle, your loop's not going to open enough to even go anywhere. You got to be back here. You still got to stop at 2 o'clock, even if it requires a little top hand or top wrist. So there's that. So underhand, yes, I love it. I love practicing it. I love everything it's taught me about casting, about my rod tip path. But I also know that sweeping around like this to this position, my timing's got to be really good when I send the energy in that D loop. Because if I do this with a long line, I'm going to over rotate and wrap the line around my head. I know that because I've done it a lot. So and I think I speak with relative authority at this because I think I have a little authority in this because I have spent so many hours thinking around with this and practicing and trying to figure it out. And the reason I do it is because I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know that maybe somebody like Goran or Klaus doesn't know a heck of a lot more about it than I do. So there's something to be learned in it. But I would say if you just want to be good at casting a Scandi line, work on getting a nice light anchor. Make sure you do use your bottom hand. There's nothing wrong with throwing a combination top hand, bottom hand in there, lengthening out your stroke, and just fishing that way. Makes more sense. It won't drive you as crazy as trying to do that kind of stuff.